I read all the comments.
Oh, Joola's just in bed with PPA now.
We're also working closely with USAP. I'll put the onus on us. That's for using a compressed core and with the propulsion core, to be honest.
But it's when these paddles start going like this, then I'm like, okay, we need that gone.
Gen 3 happened. Holy crap. People are now doing gradient edge guards. Okay, I just want to establish that, all right? If we are messing up, call us out on it.
This is Austin. You want to just explain what your role and title is?
My name is Austin Kim. I'm the product manager at Joola, mainly for the Pickleball vertical. Been at Joola for close to 2 years now. I used to work at Joola and I came back when Pickleball started growing. It's been a crazy ride ever since.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So which paddle did you come in? I think you came in when Gen 2 for you guys was launching, right?
Yes, when the Perseus and Scorpius were launching at the Lifetime. Yeah, it's when I first met you guys at the Lifetime event. That was the first paddle that was introduced that I knew of. And then afterward, the next paddle was the Gen 3 that I worked on.
Got it. That makes sense. So I think the first thing I kind of want to go over, especially because in the meeting you guys talked about this quite a bit, but just the perception of Joola. I feel like you guys are working towards kind of changing that. But, I feel like since the inception of Joola in pickleball, one of the biggest things has been quality control.
Yes.
Like I'm sure you guys have heard that a million times, but the first ones, it was like the handles snapped or the edge guards. Gen 2, for the most part, was actually pretty clean. Like there were some edge guards and occasional core crushing, but that one was actually pretty clean overall, maybe grit a little bit. And then Gen 3, everyone kind of knows how that one went.
Yeah.
But I guess when you guys have probably heard this a lot, like how do you guys feel about it? Or, I'm just sure you just hear it all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll go about this, whenever I say this, like, we hear you, right? It's for me, like I read all the comments. Again, Blades, why do you hate us? You can cut that or leave that in at the end. I don't care. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, yes, like for me, it's my mantra in terms of products is my own personal one is I want to delight our customers. That is the main thing. So like hearing the feedback and like I take the trips to China and like, what can we do to fix this quality control? To your point, right? The Gen 2s, we didn't hear that much issues with the Gen 2s. So that's why we thought like compression's okay, right? Like we thought compression was okay. And then with the Gen 3s, it's kind of like escalated very quickly in terms of like the durability of the paddles. So we understand that, and we've taken a lot of measures. As Gordon said, we were only a team of 40 a couple years ago. Now we're like 350.
Is that all pickleball, or is that table tennis and pickleball?
Pickleball and table tennis, but mainly pickleball.
Okay.
And so it is growing our team in China, growing our teams globally, growing our QA teams as well. And we have so many different processes in place now that we didn't have before. Customer service also growing, as I mentioned to you before. It's like only like 2-3 people. Gen 3 happened. Holy crap, right? Like we gotta scale up.
Those two people had to have had a rough like month or two when that all went down.
Yeah. So quality is a big thing for us that we do want to fix. Not just public perception, right? Like me, I can go and say, hey, we're fixing quality, but in the end, like the product speaks for itself, right? And so with the Pro 4, and then we're implementing new QA processes. Hopefully, we don't get that many bad batches. I can't guarantee 100%. And then applying all those different things that we've been doing for the Pro 4. So we did a lot of prototype testing on the Pro 4. And then scaling it all the way back down to our Gen 0 or Gen 1 paddles, right? So the handle braking, we're going to fix that, right? So we're going to make it a unibody. We're changing the construction of it. Still trying to maintain that nice feeling of our Hyperion paddles. But again, fixing that quality control issue. Surface roughnesses, right? We have new processes in place. We understand textures better now. We're trying to ensure that we're following everything by the book with USAP versus UPA, right? Different surface roughnesses. Yeah, the commercial ones that you're getting, they're not going to stick to your shirt because it's USAP standard of RT less than 40. But we are introducing paddles that are UPA only, and that's going to have higher grit standards.
Yeah.
So will it stick to your shirt? Maybe not, but it will have a higher grit.
Now you guys are selling a dual certified Pro 4 USAP and UPA-A that has USAP's legal grit.
Yep.
And then a UPA-A only one that has a higher grit.
Yes.
Got it.
Price point wise, right? Again, hearing feedback from our consumers, this is an incremental change in how the paddle plays. Somewhere in between the mod and a 3S, essentially, they're taking the best parts of the mod in terms of like the dwell time, the plushness, but in terms of capping the power on the 3S, right? So we're maintaining the $280 price point. We're dropping the 3S, which is UPA only right now, down to $260, and then we're launching a 3S dual certification. It's all PB Core 43 approved. We just need to make the right changes in terms of our manufacturing process for the 3S, and then we'll have it dual certified, and that'll be at $240.
Okay.
And what the pros are using, again, you guys, all the people that are watching, like detectives. I was like, holy crap, literally like zooming in, like enhance. Yeah, those paddles that the pros are using on the tour are UPA only approved. Like they have UPA only logo on it because the grit is higher.
Yeah.
And we are doing that again on purpose. Like again, because with USAP, we have a good relationship with them. Even though this whole issue with them, so we understand where they're coming from. So we're trying to keep everything by the book with them.
That makes sense. So one thing I thought was interesting, why do a dual certification one and then a UPA only one? Why not just do a USAP one and then a UPA one? Because the dual certification one that has USAP, the amateurs are never going to need that pro certification. And then if you do need pro certification, you could just go buy the pro one.
Well, because I think it's with the grit standards, right? There is discussion, does grit really affect, spin and everything? And personally, for me, I want to do more studies coming from the physics side on it. Is it coefficient of friction? Is it surface roughness? So we're gonna do more research, hire some third-party labs or universities to do it. But if there is a big difference in terms of grit and how the paddle feels, then of course, if you're playing in USAP, like it's gonna be hard to transition.
Sure.
We have some pros that are playing both UPA and USAP, right?
I see.
So I don't want them to change completely drastically in terms of the paddle, right? So like,
got it.
Right now, it sucks for some of our pros where they use the mod in USAP sanctioned tournaments until July 1st, but then they're playing in PPA tournaments, but they can't really use the mod because it's gonna fail their testing standards. So then they have to switch back and forth. So we kind of want to establish that so that, it's easier on the pros and also the people that are doing those different tournaments.
Yeah, it makes sense. Could you expand at all on, and I'm sure there's some of it you can't really talk about, but the like new QA processes that are more in check? Like, is there anything in specific that you guys have improved from before that should help with the quality control?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly just checking everything.
Sure.
I think a big thing for us was, we've always needed to kind of sometimes rush on a lot of different things. We weren't really fully doing everything like in the best practices, right? There's things called like ISO 9001, all these different things. So for us now, like the whole compressed core, right? It's a thicker honeycomb going into a mold, getting compressed. We got rid of that completely. So that's where we're discontinuing the Gen 2s as well. We're finding a replacement for that price point. But checking the honeycomb. Sometimes we do get bad batches of honeycomb where the material, it's not as good as some of the other honeycomb. It's the same size, same everything. It's within our, limits. But the material we know is not like, that's why we have Caleb, Polymer Silence, PhD. So in that regard, we can start looking like, okay, we don't even accept this batch of honeycomb.
I see.
We're telling our team, we're also telling our manufacturer's team as well, don't even accept the batch.
Sure.
So then it goes back to the supplier, and then it goes back to the raw material level. So we're looking at that entire process. Same with texture. We've written out processes at every single step of the way. We're checking it every single step of the way. And with the NFC chip, we can always track back to the certain batch, and we have written out standards and the different like QA like inspections that are linked back to these batches.
I see.
So we can always link back like, hey, okay, so this batch, what's the percentage that we're getting customer service like complaints on? Start, organizing the data, and then we can like go back to it. Okay, and then we can get those paddles cut it open, as we've done with these, and see what exactly is going on.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely look forward, and I'm glad to hear that, because I think, pickleball has been this interesting dynamic of like, how fast it's taken off. People used to be able to get away with things probably being done a little bit more poorly, and I think, especially at the price point that Joola's at, and other companies as well, I feel like at that point, you should really, it's not that you should never have to worry about something breaking. There's always things that can go wrong. I don't think you can expect things to be perfect, but it's more how consistently do they perform. And I think at that price point, it should be, man, our QA is so much better than anyone below a certain price point, because I think pickleball historically has been like, oh, well, you could buy $100 paddle and it might be just about as good as a $200 plus one, different technologies, but QA wise, I feel like they've been similar. So I look forward to seeing more of that.
Yeah. And I mean, no, that is a really big thing. QA is a main focus. It's been a focus of mine since, staying up at night reading all the Discord comments, trashing us. So, but yeah, no, that is a big focus. And again, expanding the team, right? We didn't really have that many people.
Yeah.
And so now expanding the team, hiring good people, hiring people that know the best practices, that's what's really important to us. And of course, I'll let the product speak to itself. And honestly, yeah. And if we are messing up, call us out on it. Like, I'll read it. I'll try to answer back to it as much as possible. I won't comment on the YouTube section. We can do another Q&A type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's really important for us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think moving forward, I think people will appreciate hearing that, just because, over the years, it's like, again, Gen 2 is fine, but it's just like, man, what thing will it be this time? And, so I think it'll be good to see that get improved. And I'm assuming, my perception, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but with thermoformed paddles, my assumption throughout the industry has been these will just always be able to core crush. There's always going to be a batch that was maybe a little too thick, or something just went wrong. Maybe it was too high of a heat or something. Do you feel like these will be better than a 3S, or is it like thermoforming just inherently, because of the materials that are in there, have the potential to just compromise the core?
So the thermoforming process, I mean, you have time, pressure, and heat, right? Those are the three main aspects. You're putting it into a metal mold, it's pretty heavy, and you're heating it up. It could be, someone, left it on a little bit too long, or they didn't close it in all the way. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. So of course, yes, thermoforming will always have that, issue where, you do have some slight core compression.
Yeah.
But we've also found different ways to kind of avoid that. A lot of testing with the Pro 4s, and also working backwards with the Pro 4s, we're applying that to the 3Ss. We're applying that with the new Gen 2s that we're calling it, and also with our Gen 1s, which are the Hyperion CFS, which is thermoformed as well. So we're implying trying to do best practices for all of that to ensure that we don't have that issue. Even in these batches, what we're doing now, we're cutting open the paddles. We're cutting them. We're doing this cross section right here that you see, and we're looking before we cut in half.
Yep.
We're cutting it like this and seeing it. Is there compression?
Yeah.
But right now, I think our process is sort of stable where we're not really seeing that. Of course, again, there may be a bad batch here and there, but hopefully it doesn't become a too frequent thing.
And then going back to kind of the perception thing, I don't know if you're the person that can speak on this at all, but another perception, I think, because of the 3S and how everything went down, was that, oh, Joola's just in bed with PPA now. Do you guys see that and you're like, this is not what it is? Or I guess, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if we were in bed with them, I would get the Gen 3s approved. Sure. I would be like, hey, just approve the Gen 3s, but that's not the case. I can't speak about it fully on this, but I mean, Richard's been open about this. Gordon's been open about this, but UPA has been creating their own testing standards beforehand. We were just the first ones to do it. The timing wise, yes, very coincidental.
Yeah,
I'll have to admit. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's we're also working closely with USAP. I've had many calls with Carl and John. They're very great people, and talking about their testing standards. Talking with Jason Aspis. Again, I had beef with PPL. Trust me. Just talking with Gary and those guys, I was like frustrated and furious with them because they were like our Gen 3s, they were failing testing. Like I had to bring so many different paddles for the players. Players were complaining. It was just a frustrating situation. So, but again, like I'll put the onus on us. That's for using a compressed core.
Yeah.
And with the propulsion core, to be honest, testing standards are always changing. And so for us, coming out with the 3S, it was the best decision to make. Are we in bed with UPA? I would say no. Do we do a lot of partnership stuff with them? Yes, we do a lot of partnership stuff with them. But again, if I would have the Gen 3s not be delisted, right? Yeah, or like they wouldn't even approve it. It's like that's the thing. Like, so that's the big thing for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and that's an interesting thing talking about the testing around the time of those Gen 3s, because one of the things I think was that not a lot of people understood was because that testing was like kind of so new and everyone was still mostly developing for USAP, and it was just kind of a byproduct of what happened with, UPA-A wasn't even a thing yet, so we'll just say PPL's testing. Like, you guys didn't even really know what standard to build for yet.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, all these paddles are failing, but you also didn't really know how to build to pass the test. Like, you were building for one primary organization. This other one was like secondary.
Yeah. So PPL, that came in, I believe, 2023 September is when they were first introducing their new deflection testing. And so our paddles were failing from the Gen 2 side because it was a compressed core. So it failed their new deflection test. Our Gen 2s were passing the USAP's test just fine. And then there was rumblings about PPL like being involved and not being involved and USAP being involved. So we're just like, okay, we don't really care about this deflection test. Like we can't even get this machine yet.
Yeah.
So we can't even test to it. So we still proceeded forward. Like, again, we're innovating and building out like a year, 2, 3 years in advance with some of our technologies. So we built a USAP standard, then PPL came in, UPA came in, and they're, creating this new test for deflection. Because again, for the pro players, they wanted to limit power, and then they started establishing that because paddles were becoming pretty hot.
Yeah.
All the way since 2023, even I think 2022, right? I don't really know that much about it, but yeah, that's what was happening. So
yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. So I'd love to talk about the R&D process a little bit, especially since you guys are building so far out in advance. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about kind of what that looks like, or just the processes you guys go through to come up with paddles?
Yeah. So I can't, again, I will say this every single time. I just take the credit for it. The real brains is Fabio. I think you've met Fabio, right? Mm-hmm. Back in New Orleans. Yeah, he's the real genius behind all the paddles. He has a lot of great ideas, a lot of crazy ideas. So he just writes them down, and like we just talk about it. We get Richard involved, and now we get Caleb involved, and we just go at it. And then we're like, okay, can we, like, let's try this out, right? Like, we have 10 different innovations that we can do. As long as a couple of them hit, that's all that matters to us, right? And so Bobby writes it out, we start drafting some patents for it, and then, we file, and then we go to China, and, Fabio and I are on the line. Like, we're there. Like, we were cutting paddles ourselves with the Gen 3s and even with the Pro 4s. Like, we're trying to understand, like, how does this work? And also, we're working on the manufacturing process as well to make sure that we can do mass manufacturing, right? Because, yeah, like, we can create a prototype. Prototype's amazing, but it's like handmade. How can we scale that up to, mass production? So that's kind of the R&D aspect. We have so many, as you saw at our office, did clean it up a little bit. There's a ton of paddles. Like we've tested a bunch of different things. We have new processes in place to test paddles. But that's kind of how we do it. And of course, regulations and rules are a moving target right now, right? It's the wild, wild west. No fault to USAP or UPA. They're trying to put governance. And so I understand that everything's still moving. So for us, again, we're innovating, but we also have to keep in mind that some rules may change. So that's why we're always trying to ensure that we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline ready to go, and then building that out and ensuring that, it works for pickleball.
Yeah. Then I'd specifically love to touch on some of the patent stuff, because I think there's also been this perception that with a lot of companies, just because historically it's been, okay, the factory comes up with an innovation, the company takes the innovation, and then, they run with it. So how much of it is you guys purely coming up with the idea versus maybe a more collaborative effort? Because I think there's 3 types of companies in pickleball. I think there's catalog companies. They just take whatever the factory gives them. The second one is a little bit better, where they have some ideas themselves. They can give the factory and say, hey, can you try this? And it's a little bit more collaborative back and forth.
Yep.
And then the third one is true R&D, where they're almost coming up with everything themselves and then giving the process to the factory and saying, this is what we want you to do. Like, just follow the steps we give you.
So I would say we're the latter two, right? And we're number 2 and number 3. There are some things where the factory, we tell the factory, hey, go innovate. Try something new. So that's what we kind of are starting to like develop. And then they would give us something, and then we would work with them on it. Be like, hey, so you guys did this, or we want to do this kind of thing. We want to try test out this new material. So we give it to them. They try it out because the manufacturers are also really smart too, right? I can't knock them down. So they do that, and so that's a little bit more on our lower level price point products actually. That's where there's some innovation there. But for most of our stuff with patents, like we're filing everything. I think last year we filed 17 different patents.
Oh, wow.
Last year. So both design and utility patents. Because again, like Fabio, like he's in his like mad scientist laboratory, just like creating up a bunch of different things. So, for us, it is a lot of R&D. And we go to the factory. I have another trip coming up next month, and we're going there to start working on 2026, 2027, and 2028 even.
Wow.
In terms of what we want to do. So trying the new prototypes, and then how do we tell the factory to scale for mass production? And then also with Caleb, he has a lot of good connects as well, and he also understands the manufacturing process. It was funny just watching him run up and down the production line at a shoe factory, just explaining everything to me. I was like, holy crap, he knows so much.
No one from this trip or, any of these interviews is gonna have seen Caleb, but I've talked to this guy a pretty good amount from when I went to the USAP Media Day, and that guy's smart.
He's very smart.
Like, I feel like that, I had already met you, so I kind of knew, okay, Joola's doing some stuff that maybe people don't fully understand. And then when I met Caleb, I was like, okay, this guy is definitely another level of like, he will talk circles around you all day if you want. I mean, even just hearing him at the USAP Media Day, it was like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And so that's why it's great. And also, huge props to Richard, right? He's thinking about the business, but also he just loves product, right? He's always in the R&D aspect. He's always our first test subject that we test with. It's a team of us, and of course our team in China as well. They also help us a lot in terms of R&D.
Do you guys, when you're building paddles, how much are you thinking about, some of the metrics that we talk about, like swing weight, twist weight? I think what's interesting about it is the way pickleball paddles are designed right now, specifically because so much of it is a polymer core. Mm-hmm. You're relatively limited in how much you can control, right? Like you could do larger cells, you could do smaller cells, like these different types of cores, but that weight is largely fixed, and the balance of that. You could change that with foam, but do you guys think about those much, or is it, let's just make a good paddle, see where it falls, and if it's way out of range, then maybe we got to tweak something?
Yeah, that's it's a multi-answer actually. For me, again, I'm obsessed and just read Discord and watch YouTube videos all the time. So I get a lot of, like, I see you guys are doing my job for me. I don't need to do competitor research, right? But joking aside, like, that's a really big thing. It's where, like, okay, you guys really care about swing weight. You guys really care about RPMs and all those kinds of things. So I'm about to go out and buy graffiti probably next week, and measure swing weights and everything. But we do have our own measurement that you saw on how we do measure swing weights. So that's important to us. Regarding those aspects and specs, yeah, like we always have a target weight, right? Like we don't want the paddle to be too heavy. We've had that experience with our Gen 1s, and that's why we created the Swift versions. And we also don't want it to be too light. We also understand, paddles with edge guards and that are edgeless, and what are the pros and cons with it, right? Like edgeless paddles, honestly, I don't think anyone has done a fantastic edgeless paddle so far. I mean, there are some that are pretty decent. We're going to try to go at it, but of course we want to make sure that, we bring the best product out there. But so there's a lot of different aspects of a paddle that we understand, that we do keep in mind, but also at the same time, at the end of the day, it's about that feeling, right? Like how that paddle plays is also very important. And once we understand that feeling, we understand how the technology works, then we can start dialing in. So like, okay, so do we change the material on the edge guard? Do we change the material of the honeycomb? Like, do we use a denser honeycomb, or do we use a denser foam material? Do we use a denser filler material to try to adjust that weight so we can get to better aspects of the paddle, but always keeping in mind balance point, swing weight, how it feels is really important to us.
That makes sense. I feel like it's one of those things. It's been very interesting seeing the evolution of this. When I got into pickleball, swing weight was not even a it was static weight. That was it.
Yeah,
people just said, yep, it's got to be this static weight. And now, it's been fun to kind of see the evolution of it, and companies take these things more seriously. Because really the way I see it is, I think people can obsess too much on swing weight. Oh, like maybe people are like, oh, 120 is too high. Okay, well, maybe. I think for a lot of people it is. But, I think people can fixate too much. But I think it just helps build a profile of a paddle. Like, here's the group this is for. You know what I mean? Like, this is who it's for. We built another set of paddles that are for this group. It just helps like set those targets, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So like what Brian was talking about in terms of like differentiating like the markets, right? So there's the casual players that don't care about like any of this stuff, but at the same time, they still want performance. And then there are the paddle nerds, right? That like every single little detail and aspect. And so of course we're still navigating our way, but we try to want to find the blend to ensure that we are meeting both those demands.
Yeah, for sure.
On the marketing side, that's more on like the casual players, but the R&D side, that's more on the paddle nerds.
Yep.
Again, read every single comment. Blades, why do you hate us?
Dude, actually, I would love to. Is there anything that you feel like, I don't know, last year or two, at least since you've been involved, there's like a specific comment or theme that you see that you just go, this one is so unfair. Like this one is way off base or something?
Ooh, okay, I have to think. I have to think through a lot of stuff. I mean, the biggest one was the whole UPA thing. That was one of the biggest ones. It's like there's so much going on behind the scenes that's like, honestly, I would love to share everything, but some of the stuff, it's like it's too much to talk about.
Yeah.
Other things like the mod, like even grit standards and all this other stuff. But a lot of the comments, honestly, it is valid, right? Quality control. Yeah, like again, like that is a call out. Yeah, and it sucks for me when I read that, but like it is like, it's a statement that it resonates with me. We're like, yes, we need to do better. Like that's what we always have to do. But some of the stuff, it's like, they're like, oh, like why are the players using this type of paddle, or like, it's just like drama stuff at the end of the day, or like, oh, like these paddles like weren't created, or like Joola just copied off this. And I was like, okay, well, okay, we did not copy off certain things. Okay, we've done like people are now doing gradient edge guards. Okay, I just want to establish that. All right,
I will definitely give you that one, because it was that the Gen 3s were the first one, and then they just slowly started creeping their way into the market.
Everyone's and so now actually, like if you see our Pro 4s, I mean, you can zoom in, like we have this little window now to like indicate that there is the TFP technology there. So we use like a holographic sticker, but it is a cutout. So it's to indicate that the technology is there. Bet you someone's gonna make a paddle with a sticker right there or something like that.
Sure.
Or a window.
Sure.
But no, I mean that's fine with me. One thing I guess another thing probably like the NFC chips. People are like, oh, NFC is so stupid, blah, blah, blah. I think for general consumer, like it's for us, as a way to, communicate with, you can register your warranty. You can, register your paddle, you can get more information. We want to build a whole loyalty program and everything with it. It's also to track the paddles, right? Like if there's a bad batch, we can track all of that, which is really important to us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the bad batch thing, I feel like, if anything, would be very helpful for tracking that down and not letting that be a big
fixing
problem.
Quality, guys.
I'm very excited to see the Pro 4 out in the wild, because I think I'm sure you've watched many of the reviews, and just across the board, I feel like the most frustrating thing, not even just from what you guys made, but across the whole industry, is just quality control, like break-in, all of these things. People want stable paddles.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And actually, that is a good follow-up. So with these, you guys gave us a handful to try. There's some brand new ones, and then ones that you guys did 1,000 hits shooting a ball at it for us to also demo. So there is a break-in with these. Does it just level off eventually? Like, is it not very severe?
I would say the power doesn't really change that much.
Okay.
It's more about the enhanced feeling on it. So that kind of like plushness that you get, where you kind of can feel more of like the dwell time and like controlling the ball more. Again, UPA standards, they have their PEF, the paddle efficiency factor. It's their way of saying PB core. And they are testing for break-in in the future. And so they showed us how, they're collecting their break-in data. So we're trying to replicate that, right? And ensure that not only does it matter in terms of the data and the numbers, but also the feelings. So like, that's why, like we wanted to do this for you guys. Can you guys even feel the difference? Also even cutting these paddles here, like looking at the honeycomb core, like, can you actually, like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I mean, I don't really see any degradation between the honeycomb core, but there is that break-in feeling where like, things start getting a little bit more loose.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, again, going back to what our focus in 2025 is not only the experience side, which you saw with our marketing team, but it's quality and durability. Our warranty is 1 year if you register your NFC chip. So we want our paddle to at least last that long, right? Yeah. We are tired of, people keep returning their paddles. So I'm tired of it. Okay. Customer service is hounding me. So I'm just like, okay, I'll try to fix it, guys.
Not only do you have the internet community, but you've also got the customer service people being like, you are making my life difficult.
Yeah.
So no one wants to see it. Well, and see, I think there's two types of break-ins. There's kind of the older break-in, maybe pre-Gen 2, where the paddle just changes and feel a little bit, which I attribute to just certain elements of the paddle. Just, they loosen up as you hit the ball.
Yep.
No material is going to be resilient to all breakdown, right?
Yep.
And then there's break-in that we've seen recently which is, I attribute more so to the paddle usually core crushing, and then it heats up. I think changing in feel and not heating up much, I'm pretty okay with that. I honestly would say that's fine. But it's when these paddles start going like this, then I'm like, curve, okay, we need that gone,
Yeah. So, I mean, again, for us, we've heard you guys, we've heard everyone, we've heard all your feedback, even the feedback from the pros, right? So like, I was telling David, like, Tickle My Pickle, funny name.
Yeah.
Just a trifecta, right? It's like, I'm so ingrained with the reviewers because, like, again, coming from the YouTube space, I understand how influential you guys can be. Hearing from the community, from the people. It is always funny seeing those comments on our Instagram panel. Oh, is this paddle going to get banned? Sorry, it's not banned. It's decertified or delisted.
Yeah.
And then also from the pros, right? So it's that trifecta of hearing back and getting all that feedback, right? And at the end of the day, it is about, I don't want our pros to constantly keep changing their paddle. I don't want to keep spending money on them. Like, I want our pros to just use a paddle. Like Zoe, she's using the same paddle for 4 months straight for every single PPA tournament. I was like, holy crap, this is great. Like, and I was like, so that's like something that I want to be able to have, where it's like, she hits hard, she hits super hard, but she's able to still use that paddle. That's one of the most important things for us. And yes, the feeling aspect, and again, power. I know people love power, and so I think we are at a good point with the 3S, but also it's, again, like that forgiveness and the mishits with the new technology is important. Were there other questions that people asked on Instagram? Please give me some stupid questions. I would love to answer them.
Well, hang on. I'll pull them up, but I'll tell you right now, basically the number one question was, do these still core crush? That was like 90% of the questions.
Gotcha.
And I was like,
I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, you've seen it. You did some zoom ups of it after 1,000 hits. I mean, that is how much, like, due to time. Again, that's the biggest issue. It does take a while to shoot 1,000 balls at a battle.
Yeah, I bet.
But yes, well, you don't really see core degradation, I hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at those, I haven't seen anything so far. So definitely curious to see in the wild. All right, let's see what we got on Instagram.
God. Oh, God.
Well, the first one that I see is why their paddles break down in 39 seconds and why everyone is different out of the box. That doesn't really, it's not a question. It was more of a statement, but that one just read funny. Right. This one, I think there's just a lot of jokes in here, to be honest.
No, that's great. I love a good joke.
This one said, do they have any plans to beat how quickly the Gen 3s got banned? For your sanity, I hope not. I feel like you probably had a rough year last year.
I know a way that we can do that, but no, our goal is to make sure that we are in line.
Yeah.
I will say, I am not going to give the number of PV core, but no, we're well within reason. So unless USB changes it drastically, which I don't know they might do, we should be fine.
Sure.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
To be honest.
knock on wood.
Knock on a lot of wood.
We definitely, I don't think anyone wants to see it. Reviewers don't, consumers don't, you guys sure don't. No one, we don't need any more nonsense in paddles. We all would like it to just be straight. I actually have a question more about last year's paddles. So the grips, specifically on the 16 millimeter models, were so chunky. It felt like, I feel like they were measuring closer to like 4.35 to 4.4, advertised as 4.25. What was the reason? And these feel much better so far from what I've
rushing. Because we do have obligations to our customers. That is the biggest thing. And again, I mentioned to you before off camera, we had an issue with our grip. We caught it last second, literally 2 weeks before launch, and we had to scrap all the paddles that we had in our warehouse. They're already shipped over, and I was like, holy crap. Like this is a game breaking, like
they were even thicker?
Like no, it was like a complete issue with the handle.
I see.
And so we're like, okay, we need to, like, everything is like, we have obligations to our customers on the launch. So it is a big rush. So but as huge amount of production, and then as we are starting to, like, level set, I would say that, it did get better in terms of the handles were. But yes, no, I was, again, I saw all the comments on Discord and was like literally messaging our team. I was like, why are the grips 4.375? I was like, let me get a tape measure. And I was like running around the office, like getting our paddles like from boxes. I was like measuring them on. I was like, this is killing me.
I'm glad you noticed, because there were so many people, more so, people who were just really big fans of Joola at the time, but they just kept going, man, who cares if the handles are bigger? And I'm like, dude, these are some chunky handles.
They're pretty thick. They're thick boys.
Yeah, they were definitely thick.
But yeah, and so actually what we're doing now, so yes, they are 4.25. That is what we're going for in the 16s, and then the 14s are 4.125 inch. Okay. But we are also trying out, so with the Graph Pro 16 millimeter, so it's a 16 millimeter paddle, Agassi shape, same Pro 4 technologies inside, but the handle is 4.125.
Oh, sure.
So it's a little bit thinner. You can test it out over there. I don't know if you brought a tape measure.
Sure.
Also, same with the Hyperion, the Simone version. Before, there wasn't a difference besides the color. It was blue versus green. But now with Simone's, it is a smaller handle, because that is also what Simone likes. Yeah. So we wanted to do that differentiation, because we do get a lot of feedback as well. Like, hey, I want a smaller handle. So we are testing that out. We are going to be testing out, and if this does go well, we're going to do a little bit more testing on handle sizes. We might start introducing variants of our Pro 4 paddles with that thinner handle.
So you could just pick.
So you could pick as an option, yes.
I see. Yeah, I'm sure some people would definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, and we know, like some people, like Tyson, he puts 3 over grips on his. So it's like, so.
Yeah, it's not thick enough at all for something like, and these ones I can't tell from here. It's not a fully molded handle, is it? It's just harder.
It's not a fully molded. Okay. It's a harder foam material.
It felt pretty. Oh, it's foam.
It is a foam.
It felt. Oh, really? It felt much harder than a. Okay, really? That's a foam. That is a very firm foam.
Oh no, sorry. It's not a foam. It's a poly type of material.
Sure. I was gonna say that.
I was thinking of foam. Yeah, just too much foam everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a harder, thicker, like plastic material.
Okay.
It's not fully molded. That is part of our innovation timeline of going fully molded as well.
This definitely feels better though. I mean, that when I was playing, that was one of the first things I noticed. I was like, oh, like doesn't squish there. The handle's not big. Like it.
I'm glad.
Good step in the right direction.
Yes. Again, we saw those comments like 4.375. I was like, holy crap.
So wait, are you the one on the team, at least on the engineering side, that just has to receive like all the internet comments and then relay that to like Fabio and everyone else? Or does anyone else read those as well?
Luckily Caleb is more into that than me. So
sure.
Like he reads and watches everything more than me. Which is like, I do that a lot, but like he does to the extreme. Like he's like sending me clips of like, I'm trying to watch your podcast, like I have it in the background, like something I forget something, but he like knows the exact timeline, like, and he's like sending me that, and he's like, oh, by the way, this, and I was like, holy crap, okay. But again, I mean, I check Discord, I feel like I should probably start commenting in Discord maybe in the future if I get the green light from Brian. But yeah, like just stuff like that. Just a lot of the comments. I mean, even the great feedback that we got, right? So one thing that I do want to call out is so we do sell paddles in retail stores, right? And, as Gordon mentioned, there's tons of retail stores but they're all being hung, right? Like they're on a paddle wall. So we have to create packaging that fits that. But now we have our direct to consumer. So if you buy from our website, you can get this really nice box now. Again, we're trying to leveling up the experience level, right? And so, Howard, he's a big fan of Joola. I'd love to meet him one day too. He's been with us. I've seen some of his comments. He was kind of on us for the Gen 3s, but he's coming back to us. But his comment about like the pink Perseus, I saw that and I shared it with the team. Like, it's not only the bad comments, it's also the good comments as well. And like,
sure.
We put in a lot of effort in, making, the experience better. You open up the box, you get clear edge tape, which we're doing as well. So, we have a nice design on the edge guard. Don't want to cover it. So we're providing clear edge tape, and, we are providing a new overgrip, providing some stickers and just a nice box and experience. And so like, that's also things that we want to do. And I'm glad that people are noticing a little bit here and there. And so like, even I just said that to our packaging designer. She was like ecstatic about it. She was like, oh my God, like my efforts are paying off.
Well, and I just appreciate, and I think consumers watching this will probably appreciate just knowing that you guys actually do see that stuff. Cause I think a lot of times with the larger companies in pickleball, in anything, but pickleball specifically, there's this thought that, man, we scream these things, but no one ever does anything. No one hears it. No one cares. They just never fix anything. Our comments are not heard. So yeah. I think people at least knowing that someone is reading all of them yes. and is well aware of them. And then, now hopefully everything checks out with these and is good. We'll obviously put them through their paces, but it's good to know that someone's listening.
Yeah, basically. I'm not allowed to look at Discord at night anymore. Like spending it until 1 a.m. My girlfriend was getting mad at me. So
that's probably just better for your mental health too, because I had to stop doing that.
So like I wake up now like before I go to work, and then I open up Discord, and then I see 451 messages. So what is the drama that happened this time? I mean, the thing is, a lot of companies I do say like we do have good relationships with other companies as well. They do listen as well.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that people have to realize is the turnaround time on a lot of this stuff. It takes so much time, right? It's not just a bureaucratic process, but it's manufacturing. It's a long process. So yes, it's not just us. Again, a lot of credit to a lot of great people at other companies as well. They are hearing these comments, and they are innovating. And of course, as Gordon said, like being in this space is crazy to hear about. Like all these other companies, all the people that I've met, very great guys. And it's a good competition between us. It's not just like on the court, but it's like off the court where we're innovating. Some company does something great. Okay, what can we do to beat them out on that? So
this is less about actual companies, but does it frustrate you guys at all? Like a big thing in pickleball, I mean, I'm already seeing this with like the carbon true foam is, the factory will start trying to do some knockoff, whether it ends up on Alibaba or where. And the true foam core in particular is a very funny one to me because I'm just seeing pictures and I'm going, oh my gosh, this looks so bad. Like it is clearly a worse iteration. It's not designed well. Obviously that happened a lot with, the mod and the Gen 3. I think one thing that is, maybe unfair to companies that are actually doing true R&D is I think consumers see that on there and they go, oh, well, if it's on Alibaba, obviously they just gave it to, whatever company and they ran with it. Does that ever get frustrating or are you guys just
Yeah, no, and I mean, it gets very frustrating. I mean, even from like the Perseus Gen 2s where people are just knocking off, like it's literally a copy of our artwork, right? And they're just like, or one other thing that annoys me is when factories are saying, oh, we are a factory for Joola.
Yeah, no, I do hear that a lot.
It's like, no, like we know our manufacturers, we have a good relationship with them. Like we know exactly what they're doing. That just frustrates us because it does take away a lot of the hard work from our actual partners, like our actual manufacturers that are doing a good job. Right. But yeah, I mean, like all the knockoffs, and I mean, it's a little bit flattery, right? It's like, how you see on the streets of New York, like you see like fakes of like designer bags and
Yeah.
everything. So it's like it is pretty interesting on that, but hopefully, you know, what we can do is keep innovating beyond. And so the next stuff, by the time they're like catching up to us, we'll have something new, better, and greater.
Yeah, and I think the companies that, you know, especially as the paddle nerds, I think we really love seeing some of that behind the scenes R&D. One, because I think it helps assert like, oh yeah, this company is actually doing that. I feel like with Carbon, we got to see a lot of that, and it was like, oh, okay, I actually believe that, you know, you went and developed this or whatever. And it's so hard to know because you have so many companies in pickleball that try and pitch these innovations as like, no, this is, we did this when they, you know, didn't. So it's hard to know who's telling the truth.
Yeah, and like, again, I mean, we can talk about this off camera because I don't want to give credit to where credit is due. But yeah, no, some companies, they do a fantastic job. And yeah, I also feel for them when, you know, stuff gets copied because like we're in the same boat.
Yeah. Totally. Well, we should probably get back to doing some stuff. It's probably almost dinner time here, but I appreciate you hopping on and answering some questions. And yeah, this is great. Look forward to trying the paddle.
Make sure to like and subscribe. Let's get Chris his silver play button.
Let's go. He knows.
But yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for being here. Honestly, you know, it's always great talking to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Again, we're trying to be more of an open book. You know, clarity, transparency. So if you have any questions or if you have anything that you want to talk about, feel free to reach out to me. You have my number. But yeah, no, it's great. And again, you owe us a good review. And I also need that trophy for the biggest flop of the year. And also, but one other thing. So Brian mentioned this because I was like telling Brian, I was like, we need that trophy for flop of the year so we can like put it in our new office. But he also said, technically, that means we're already in contention for greatest comeback of greatest comeback.
True. To get, earning the flop does, you know, it does put you up for the comeback award. What's funny though is last year, the people didn't want that award. They never claimed it. So I went, there's no way Joola wants this thing. So I just didn't even make one. And then when I saw you, you said, no, I want it.
Yeah, no, I want it. No, I want to display it, right? It's going to be like more face fronting than our power paddle award.
the real one.
That's gonna be like back in storage. Like I want to see flop of the year. It's like at our new office, you'll see it's like boom right there.
It's the motivator.
That's the motivator. No, that's great. No,
that's well, I'm glad that you at least have a sense of humor with it. I feel like not all people or companies have that sense of humor.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, anyways, thanks, and look forward to the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.